incorporate those type of notes into that purpose statement. It can be a
I love
video,
that.
it can be a written
Yes.
out statement. But then, again, just remember, you can actively train. You don't have to wait until you're gone to start training the next generation.
Welcome to the Next Level Income Show, where it's our goal to take your income, your investments, and your life to the next level. I'm your host, Chris Larson. If you haven't yet, get a copy of our book for free at our website, nextlevelincome.com. That's www.nextlevelincome.com. Just click on the book link, and I'll even send you a copy if you put your address in. On today's show, I'm excited to have my friend Whitney Elkins-Hutten, the Director of Investor Education at PassiveInvesting.com. She's also the founder of AshWealth.com and the author of the recently released book, Money for Tomorrow, How to Build and Protect Generational Wealth, published with BiggerPockets. And she is also the co-author of the international #1 bestseller, Resilient Women in Life and Business, the host of the Passive Investing Made Simple YouTube show and podcast, and a partner in over $800 million in real estate, including over 6,500 residential units, 15 car washes, and more than 2,200 self-storage units across 11 states. She also has experience flipping over $5 million in residential real estate. If you want to know how someone like Whitney and myself address the question of not only building, but also protecting generational wealth to help your heirs and future generations continue to grow and be good stewards of money, you're going to want to stay tuned. Whitney, it's great to see you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm happy. I'm happy for you to be here, and I'm really excited for the topic. I'm really excited for you to share your new book with the audience as well. It's fun, it's exciting, it's kind of sexy to talk about investments and how to grow our money. But sometimes we don't spend enough time talking about the things that aren't as exciting to think about, and sometimes uncomfortable. I was just talking about this topic with my wife this morning about her parents and estate planning, and it's challenging to think about, right? We don't like to think about our own mortality, and maybe for me it's a little less challenging because I lost my father at a young age, so it's kind of just like a reality to me. But my wife was kind of reluctant to discuss that, so we're going to dive in really deep into the topic today about how to keep your money, but something that makes it a little more exciting, really how to teach the next generation about how to continue to maintain and grow wealth. But before we do that, Whitney, I'd love for you to share a little bit about your background with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so my name is Whitney Elkins-Hutten. I'm the Director of Investor Education at PassiveInvesting.com. I'm also the founder of AshWealth. Yay! There we go. If you guys are watching live, flash the mug.
There you go.
Yeah. So really, even though I'm here educating people about wealth creation as well as passive investing in multifamily self-storage, express car washes, and real estate debt, I didn't start off there. That is not what I went to school for. I actually started off in medical school and then eventually public health school. And, really, I stumbled into real estate completely by accident. I bought a house with a significant other, and about a year later, or a month later, actually, the relationship fell apart and I had a house. And so I thought this house was going to wreck me. Put it back together. It was all torn apart, 1960s, total rehab project, green shag carpet,
Wow.
psychedelic daisies. And
Check that out.
remember, yeah, oh yeah, 2002, this thing was a beauty. And YouTube didn't exist back then, so I had to teach myself from a book and Home Depot classes and pay my friends
Imagine
in
that.
sushi and beer and pizza to put
Yeah.
this place back together. And then that was really the foray for me into real estate, because then I realized that the value I created in the world was unhooked from them, how much time that I had to spend at a day job. I
What a
was like,
cool lesson to learn.
dang.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
dang, right? How many more
Yeah.
times can I do this?
Yeah.
Did several more live and flips projects, and then eventually scaled into single family real estate when I was trying to figure out, like, how do people retire off of this? And then somebody told me one day, hey, why don't you keep one of those rentals and a renter into it? And I was like, that's brilliant. Like, why
Yeah.
didn't I think of that? And guys, I went to school for epidemiology. So if you don't know what that is, it's like biostatistics. Like I
which
knew
is which
numbers.
was really it was really cool during COVID, for
Oh, I
sure.
was a
But
total geek during COVID.
Absolutely.
My
Absolutely.
husband was like, you need to stop looking at all the data sources. And I'm like, this is fun.
I
um,
yeah, we're both nerds in that way, Whitney, for sure.
anyways, so and then eventually scaled 36 single family rentals, bought a multifamily building with partners, went into general partnership on 10 multifamily assets, raised on 29 passive deals. And then, in the past few years, I've been, doing what I love to do, which is educating people on how to create wealth for themselves and leverage real estate as an investment vehicle, specifically passively, because, we only have so much time and attention
That's right.
available to ourselves. And I would say 99% of the people that are interested in real estate should actually never buy their own real estate.
Mm.
They should learn how to invest in other people's deals because you have a higher and better use in your job. Maybe you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, you're an engineer, whatever it is, like if you have a passion someplace else, there's no need for you to learn how to go buy your own single family rental. Learn how to invest in other people's deals. And that's what I love doing here at passiveinvesting.com. And part of the premise in the book, Money Tomorrow, how to build and protect generational wealth.
Yeah. No, I love that. And that's where we intersect because, at Next Level Income, we talk about how to make more money, how to keep more money, and how to grow your money. And, it's amazing, but a lot of people and a lot of our listeners, a lot of our investors, and if you're listening, you maybe start shaking your head, you're like Whitney and I, where you've created this wealth during your life, you're kind of first generation wealth. And then you say, well, wait a minute, like, how do we teach our kids, the same lessons? Whitney and I were just chatting before the show about our kids. Her daughter's a phenomenal climber out in Colorado. She's 11 years old and just crushing it out there. And we were talking about, some like how do you help your children have the most success in life? And it's interesting, right? Because there are rules, there's data around success for children and for younger individuals that are trying to achieve success, whether it's in music or sports or any types of athletics. But there are also rules around the same thing in wealth, and these are some of the things that you put in your book. But the challenge is for people like us, Whitney. It's like we learned our lessons through the school of hard knocks, right? It's like through making a lot of mistakes, and people. Actually, my friend that we were just talking about in Salt Lake City joked around. He's like, "Oh yeah, 20-year overnight success, right?" Because I talk about in my book how it took me 15 years to figure out my strategy. And a lot of people they're like, "Oh, Chris, you just started doing this." It's like, no, I started at 21. I'll be 46 this year. So I've only really had it figured out for about 10 years. So what is the audience? So first off, your book, Money for Tomorrow, I got it pulled up right here, How to Build and Protect Generational Wealth. So what ultimately inspired this? What was the genesis of this book, Whitney?
I think it's very mirrors what you had described in your journey, over the course of 22 years of investing in real estate, and completely stumbling into this by accident. I was looking for a plan, a blueprint, like
Yeah.
okay, great. I understand now real estate is an investment in vehicle 20 years ago. I understand the power of it. Where's the blueprint? Where's the steps? 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is like how you get to the end, right? Like,
Yeah.
where's that blueprint? And just continued to dig and read and dig and read. And I'm like, there is no blueprint, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
Es-
read.
Especially like, unless you're ultra wealthy and you have a family office or you have, a high-end wealth advisor, it's really hard to get this information just even aggregated.
Mhm. And that's exactly it. So I read books, I read blogs, I attended events, I hired coaches, and then I started noticing kind of the through lines, on the principles that, the 1%, the wealthy actually utilize in order
Hmm.
or follow in order to build and create and protect their wealth.
Yeah.
And so why did I write the book? I wrote it for one person. I wrote it for my daughter because as we
Oh,
scaled our portfolio, I wanted her to have that blueprint. I want to aggregate this all together and be like, honey, like if I got hit by a bus, morbid
hmm.
thought, right?
Yep.
I wanted her to be able to pick up the book and,
Hmm.
have those skills to continue to build and steward what my husband and I have created for our
Yes.
family, right?
Yes.
We're those transitional characters our life.
Okay.
So first generational wealth, but maybe you're not first generation, but you can be that transitional character in your family to
Yes.
help, to create more stewards rather than spenders and savers. And
Yeah.
so I wrote it for her. And, I had everything kind of like mapped out on like, Word documents, little mini videos. I created like a little mini course for
Oh,
her
wow.
just in case.
Yeah.
And then, I'm coaching, clients on wealth creation. I'm
Yeah.
utilizing these principles, in my coaching. I'm like, wait a second, I should just give them this that I already have written. So
Yeah.
they started using it. We tweak it. I land on the page at biggerpockets.com a few years ago talking about it. And we got to the end of the presentation. I said, like, let's talk about how to die. And then everything just goes silent, If anybody
Yeah.
knows Brandon Turner, who used to be at BiggerPockets, that man is hardly ever silent. The room goes completely silent. And then everybody starts to nervously laugh. And I'm like, okay, great. I got your attention.
You got something. Yeah.
Start taking notes, because this is what we need to learn how to do. Not only it's one set of skills to create it, it's another set of skills to grow the wealth.
Yep.
Okay. And we as investors tend to over concentrate in those two areas. Nearly every single podcast that you listen
Yep.
to is going to be about creating and growing.
Yep.
We need to flex those skills on how to keep it and protect it
That's
for the
right.
next generation. And
Yeah.
that's an entirely different skill set.
Yeah. No, and it's not only it's a structure, right? Like it's a specific structure to keep it, and then it's also a specific set of lessons or information, and that's where I find a lot of investors are really like, hey, I got a hole, in my plan here, which is, even if you got the legal structure, maybe you don't understand how to translate that to your children. And I talk about, I wrote a chapter in a children's book, which is called No Problem Parenting, which is total BS. Like there's always problems with parenting. But
I
it's
was like,
catchy,
have you
right?
cracked the code, Chris? Can
Yeah.
you give it to me?
I only wrote a chapter on finances, and how to teach your kids about money in here. But I talk about the Vanderbilts because I live here in Asheville, North Carolina, and most people that are listening, you've probably heard the expression from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations, which means a generation builds the wealth, a generation, then, grows the wealth, and then the next generation blows the wealth. So, it's unfortunate, but it's happened over and over again in history. The Vanderbilts are a terrific example of this worst case scenario, whereas the Rockefellers have a best case scenario. And the difference is that the Rockefellers have the Rockefeller rules. So they've come up with this set of rules, just like you did, Whitney, to do that. So what's the number one mistake that you find, people like us, first generation wealth investors, do when it comes to planning or not planning for their future?
Ooh, no one. There's a handful of top mistakes.
Yeah. Yeah. Give
And
me, yeah. What's one of the top mistakes? Maybe that's a better question.
Well, so I mean, with people that I coach one-on-one, I mean, they have sometimes tens of millions of dollars. They don't have a dashboard. They don't have
Yep.
visibility into their portfolio.
Yep.
Something quite simple as that. I mean,
Yep.
and so I think so mistake number one, I think there's an assumption, even if you're really great at creating money and investing in deals, that you have to have those systems in place to have visibility into your portfolio and to steward and manage it. Right. Because at some point in time, you're going to question those rules. The market's going to turn on you and you're going to
Mm-hmm.
question,
Mm-hmm.
hey,
Yeah.
is what I've been doing actually working? Or you're going to move out of that accumulation phase of your life and start moving into more of a cash flow phase of your life. And
Yeah.
so, making sure that you have those systems in place, I think is mistake number one. Another big mistake that I see, especially related to keeping wealth, is people don't plan for their incapacity. It's uncomfortable to talk
Mm.
about. And planning
So
for your
specifically, like,
incapacity.
you're either incapacitated through an accident, through a health issue, or through death, right? Would be the ultimate incapacity.
Mhm. Well, and I think it's even, people understand that we die,
Yeah.
that, we're not
Yeah.
immortal. And so,
Not yet.
eventually they'll put the trust in place, right? if you're paying
Yeah.
attention to Brian Johnson and his
Yeah.
blueprint, I mean, he's like, immortality is coming, right? But we'll leave that for another conversation. Uh, so, I think people understand wills and trusts.
Yeah.
Did they put them in place soon enough? Questionable. But even
Yeah.
before then, just, the trip and fall,
Mhm.
the cancer diagnosis,
Yeah. Yeah.
you get in a car accident on your way home from work, those things you just cannot see, cannot plan for,
Yeah.
can leave you incapacitated.
Yeah.
And that old adage is if you don't have a plan for your money, somebody else does. And those type of things, those decisions, uh, can often drain your wealth pretty darn fast.
Oh
And I
yeah.
think there's an assumption there. You have a spouse or a family member that they're automatically going to be able to make decisions. Depending on the state you live in, that's actually not the case.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
going to be completely cut out of the decision-making power for what happens to you medically. And so I really encourage people, do it at the end of the day today.
Yep.
Go call your lawyer. Make sure you have a living will, health directives, and power of attorneys in place.
Yes.
And
Yes.
so for me, the story, became completely evident. My dad was at end of life. He, had Parkinson's, very serious case of Parkinson's, and he was on hospice. And quite frankly, we were all, waiting for his transition. And he experienced a medical emergency in the care facility that he was in. They took him to the neighboring hospital. They didn't have his living will on file. This is before medical records.
Yeah.
They revived him.
Yeah.
And most people would be like,
We've
oh
seen
my
the same
God,
thing in our
isn't
family.
that what you want, Winnie? Your
Yeah.
father to be
That's
revived?
not what he
That was
wanted, though,
not,
perhaps. Yeah.
that was not
Yeah.
his wish.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and, it's not just about the money that was spent to revive him or the 2 more years that he spent in the facility, but
Yeah.
just like it was against his wishes.
That's
And
right.
so anyways, I really encourage people, like, make sure you have things in place.
Absolutely.
The other thing, and I think this will hit home for
Do you
you,
mind if we
Chris.
pause? Yeah, do you mind if we pause real quick there? I just wanted to
Yeah.
add something. So we've seen that as well in our family. My grandfather went through the same thing when he had Alzheimer's, and he was revived against his wishes. Um, and yeah, he spent, his quality of life was very poor. So that was unfortunate. But the other thing that I saw when my father passed away, as I mentioned earlier, he did not have these plans in place. He was only 41. He was a business owner. He owned real estate. He also uh, uh, I want to say rehabbed, but he fixed up Corvettes. So he had 6 Corvettes in various states of either pristine or in various states of repair. And he left a real mess for my mom because she was young. She was a young mother. She was in her late 20s at the time. So she had myself that was 5 and my sister that was a year and a half. And she didn't have the knowledge nor the legal structure set up. And it took her literally years to get through everything. And ultimately, if you guys are listening, it's like, well, okay, but maybe she had some resources. She had this. The thing is, it really left her with a lot of resentment for my father because, of kind of this mess that, he didn't obviously leave on purpose. So I just want to echo what you said, Whitney, which is if you don't have these things in place for yourself, please put it on your calendar to go do that. But number 2, check if your loved ones that you are involved with, like your parents, brothers, sisters, make sure that they also have these things put in place as well. And if they don't, maybe you can encourage them to do it. Are you a high-income business owner or professional earning $200,000, $300,000 or even more a year, but still feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck? Are you comfortable working until you're 65 or 70 to retire? Or do you want to achieve financial independence and live life on your own terms? You could join myself and Matt Four and learn how we both became financially independent in our early 30s. We will teach you how to make, keep, and grow your money, teaching you strategies to maximize your earnings, keep your income that you've earned through tax strategy and legal structures, and ultimately teach you how to grow it by determining your personal investing strategy, as well as teach you how to analyze investments so you can grow your passive income to the point to live life on your own terms. Our coaching clients reliably do this in 7 years or less. To learn more, check out our coaching program at nextlevelincome.com/coaching. That's nextlevelincome.com/coaching.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't think that you have to, go into setting up a living trust or a will at the same time. So you can actually do these two things separately.
Yeah.
So that's, when we talk about protecting wealth, and
Yeah.
not necessarily keeping it, but protecting it, that's kind of prong number one. Prong number
Yeah.
two, get the living will and trust or trust set up.
Yeah.
And for me, I love trust. And
Yeah.
it was really a lawyer. My uncle's a lawyer, and he's like, I hate lawyers. And he was like, I would never do that. But then he explained it to me. He goes, the reason why trust can be so effective
Mhm.
is because in your lifetime, you are transferring ownership over another entity that never dies.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a will, you own all your assets. And when you die, you now have to have a new owner. That new owner is the estate. And your will is the piece of paper that you take to the judge to sue the estate to get the assets.
That's
So a lot
a
of
good way to
people,
put it. Yeah.
right? I was like, oh,
Yeah.
that's brilliant. I was like,
Yeah.
thank you. Like the light bulb
Yeah. That
finally
doesn't
came on.
sound fun. Yeah.
It's very public, like any proceeding.
Mm-hmm.
It's very
Mm-hmm.
open. It's very public. Everybody's going to know your business.
Yep.
And so that's the reason why I love trust. There's one owner, there's one owner, they never die. They remain private. But here's the thing, they are expensive now to set up.
Yeah.
Probably $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, depending on the complexity. Of course, you
Mm-hmm.
can get far more complex than that. A will, most people opt for that. They say, my estate's simple. I don't need that. I only want to spend $200 or $300 to do that right now. But that leaves the expense of lawsuit called probate to the executor and your heirs.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yep.
it's expensive. Most probates, the cheapest probate in any state, minimally is $8,000 to $10,000
Good point.
for a simple
Good
estate.
point. Yeah.
So, anyways, but sure, talk to a legal professional and figure out which is most appropriate for you and your situation. But I personally love like living trust. That would be the next step in this process. So plan for your
Agree with you on that one.
incapacity,
Yeah.
plan for the ownership of your assets. But don't stop there, because what you said at the beginning, how do we teach our kids, right?
Yeah.
Because you can
Yeah.
have a will. When my mom passed away, I kind of had a general idea of what she wanted to have happen with her and my dad's belongings and everything. We had conversations, but I had no idea where anything is. I mean, I got a call at 9 a.m. saying my mom had passed away. She lives in, 2,000, 3,000 miles away from me. I have to fly down there. I walk into a house that's in complete disarray because my mom had dementia at the time. And, just we're everywhere. And so I've been like, I don't know where the will is. I don't know who owns the house, who has the bank note on the house.
Yeah.
Who bank? I don't even know that. Like, where do I begin to look for the will? Right.
Yeah.
So I'm having to like dig through the house to it's like a forensic investigation to kind of figure out all these different things.
Yes. Yeah.
Whereas that's kind of what I call the I love you plan, is like the next tier, you plan your capacity, you plan, for the passing of your assets, but actually train your executor.
Yeah.
Where all of this information, what your plan is, how to access it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And leave them like an inventory of everything.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
Of all the assets, down to who are the utility holders on the property. Yeah. When my mom passed away, my husband had this task. He really, bless him, he like really helped me a lot, but we had to notify the utility companies that the house was like vacant and that we need to get final bills on the utilities. In Houston, my mom had a choice of 35 gas providers.
Whoa.
We had no idea which one was the gas provider. So my husband's on the phone.
Just like calling
every single gas provider to figure out who, was providing gas to the property.
Yeah.
Right. So,
wow.
Anywho's, I would also include that information because
so good. Yeah.
Because like you said earlier, with the case of your parents, right? When your dad passed away, your mom if she just knew where everything was and kind of what just the bare bones plan of what to do with everything.
Yeah.
would have moved a lot smoother and she would have been
Oh
allowed
yeah.
to.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, and I love it how you say it's like the "I love you" plan. And we actually have. I just made a note because my wife and I have a binder. It's kind of old school, but I just made a note to update the digital version. And what's nice is like we have such great technology these days. You can find these if you want resources in any of this stuff. Feel free to reach out to us. Send an email to coaching@nextlevelincome.com, coaching@nextlevelincome.com. If you're like, hey, heard this on the conversation with Whitney on the podcast. We'd love to have this, or we can put you in direct touch with Whitney as well. But that's one of the great things. You can share it on Google Drive, and you can give access to a very small number of people. Now, I know some people might say, "Oh, well, I don't want to share that." Okay, well, there's other ways that you can do it too. You can put it in a binder. You can put it in a safe. You can give a few limited people the combination to that safe. But yeah, ours has all of this information. So it's kind of like a guidebook. And then one of the things we did with our attorney, Whitney, was we actually did videos as well for our boys. And we talked about, we left a message, we have a message for them, we have different things. But that's been several years. So one of the other things we recently did here with our boys is we actually included them in this process about what are our family values, and we're going to continue to update that every few years so that the boys start to become integrated into really the family unit, the Larson family, and how we handle our wealth and some of the lessons that we do. So my boys are only 12 and 14, just a hair ahead of your daughter, but I think they're old enough to start learning these lessons. And ultimately, when they're adults, when they're 18, 25, 30, God willing, they'll have all of the information, and they'll be stewards of this wealth in some way, shape, or form.
And that's beautiful because that ties
Yeah.
into like kind of the fourth tier, which is training the heir. So
Yeah.
plan for your incapacity, plan for the passing of your assets, train the executor, right? And then train the heirs and
Yeah.
you know, teach them now. Hopefully
Yes.
actively you're teaching them, but
Yeah.
write a book, record
Yeah.
a journey,
Yeah.
have all that accessible. But you're, like you said, you're trying to relay not only the tactical things of what do you do with this money, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
but also those family values, like you said.
Yeah.
Write a purpose
Yeah.
statement and put it with your trust and with your will
Yeah.
that clearly outlines what are our family values? What are the holidays we celebrate? What is the intent of that holiday? What are our
Yeah.
traditions as a family?
Yes. Yes.
Because those are the things like I remember I got my when my daughter was born, I bought each one of the grandparents this little book, and I wanted them to write. It was just they took 30 seconds each day to write down just something
Oh,
about a memory of their childhood, their upbringing. And
yeah.
it got into a lot about family values
Yeah.
and, how, what did they remember growing up? Like why do
Mhm.
we do the things we do in our family? Why is it my
Yeah.
mom is so adamant that we make fudge every year on Christmas? She had a very specific reason why.
Yeah.
It's not because she loved fudge, because she never ate any of it.
How
It was
about that?
about the communal part of making the fudge, right?
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
more to it.
I love
Um,
that. Yeah.
and so, incorporate those type of
Hmm.
notes into that purpose statement. It can be a
I love
video,
that.
it can be a written
Yes.
out statement. But then, again, just remember you can actively train. You don't have to wait until you're gone to start training the next generation. You
That's
want
right.
to interrupt that pattern of shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in three generations. That training starts now. And
Absolutely.
I feel there's no too young to do this. Like I
There's not.
started playing cash flow for kids with my
Yeah.
daughter at age 3. My family thought I was nuts. I was like, if I can get to
Yeah.
understand 2 words, asset and liability, I have won.
There you go. I love that. We were just talking, my son and I were just talking about that the other day. But a couple points. So the thing is, if you're listening and you're like, this is overwhelming, like I got to do a living trust, I got to do this. Whitney said this, Chris said this, they're doing this. Just pick up your phone. Like most of us have iPhones or Android, and do a little folder on your phone and take a video. Start today. Just do a video, share a message with your family, put it in there, share that with your spouse or your loved ones that you have, and just say, hey, this is in case something happens to me. It's a little morbid, but again, I think it's, you know, death is a certainty at some point, depending on how technology is. But take action, take a small action to move forward. And then one of the other things that I've been working on here recently, Whitney, is I've done probably somewhere in the order of 400 or 500 podcasts in combination, lots of blogs, written a book, several chapters, and some others. I've been uploading everything into Chat GPT to make a virtual Chris Larson here for my children to do that. So that may be something that you can incorporate as well for you and your family.
I'm so fascinated by
Yeah.
that. A friend of mine owns a wealth management company here in Boulder, and I love it, hate it. He has a Chat GPT as an
Does he?
HR assistant. I'm like,
Yeah, how about that? Yeah. You know what? I wish I had that when I was in the corporate world, because I could say, oh, you know what, Whitney, why don't you talk to the Chat GPT HR instead of talking to me? I don't want to get in trouble. You can just talk to them and I won't say the wrong thing. That's a great idea. Yeah. I have no liability. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
There's
goodness.
also
Oh my
amazing
goodness. Yeah.
questions that he
Yeah.
uses it to enhance his relationship with his
Yeah.
employees. But I'm like,
That's
you did
that's
what?
interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, our goal is to have it as a tool for, our coaching clients, have it on our website. But yeah, hopefully my boys can ultimately, maybe they can even kind of learn from it and do that at some point. Whitney, I could talk to you all day. I feel so grateful we get to spend some time together. When we were out in Utah. Together here recently. It was a highlight of my trip to get to have lunch with you. But if the audience wants to learn more about you, you have a fantastic podcast. You got so many great resources. I've got a copy of your book. I got the audio version too. How can the audience get a copy for themselves and have really an outline how they can walk through all the things that we talked through today?
Absolutely. Yeah. The book really is laid out as not just financial knowledge, but to empower you for financial capacity. So at the end of every chapter is an action plan. And so you're not going to be left wondering, okay, great, I just read 50 pages of information. What do I do next? The checklist is at the end of the book, what you need to be doing next in every chapter. So really wanted to make it very actionable. You can find the book on Amazon. It's also available on Audible. There's a suite of tools. If you pick it up at biggerpockets.com/money for tomorrow, suite of tools that accompany the book. One of those tools is that I Love You plan. And so you can start, creating that binder, that checklist Chris and I were talking about in today's episode right now. You'll have that available for you. Awesome. And as far as where you can find me, you can reach out to me at ashwealth.com if you have questions about the book or wealth creation in general. If you're interested about, our deals that we do in partnership with Chris as well, you can find me at passiveinvestingwithwhitney.com.
Awesome. And we'll have these links in the show notes here so you can get a copy of Whitney's book. You can get in touch with her. Whitney, we're surely going to have you back on the show here. Thank you so much for sharing so much about this valuable topic with our audience today.
My pleasure, Chris. Thank you so much.
Hey, Chris here again. I hope you found this episode valuable. Now, I have one more thing to gift you. We have a page for my coaching clients where you can get a free copy of my book, as well as much more from previous guests on the show. Just check out nextlevelincome.com/coaching to get a free copy of my book, audiobook, and much more. I'll send you a copy of my book and cover all the shipping costs as a thank you for listening to the podcast. Also, please like, share, and take just 90 seconds to give us a rating on Apple Podcasts.